Have you ever stopped to reflect on the exact moment your body stopped being a faithful ally and began to transform into a kind of invisible prison, limiting your steps and your freedom? Perhaps you have noticed that getting up from an armchair or putting on your shoes has become a silent challenge, a stiffness that seems to have crept stealthily into your joints, convincing you that this is just the inevitable weight of the years. The real danger does not lie only in short breath, but in an ignored risk that many call natural aging, but which is actually functional shut-in syndrome. This condition drains your autonomy day after day, transforming simple movements into insurmountable mountains, while you passively accept that your vitality is fading away, without realizing that the true enemy is the silent and progressive locking of your own musculoskeletal system. However, what modern longevity science has just validated is a powerful discovery that can completely change the way you see your future starting today. There is a biological key capable of interrupting this stiffening process, proving that your body is not broken or irreparably worn out, but rather just uncalibrated and in need of specific stimuli. Imagine regaining the lightness of walking without feeling like your internal gears are rusted, retaking total control over your body mechanics, and ensuring that your physical dignity remains intact. What we are going to reveal today is not an empty promise, but a protocol of power and motor awareness that allows you to dictate the pace of your own aging. This is the moment to discover how an unlocking technique can be the definitive frontier between a dependent old age and a life of full and absolute autonomy. Often, the stiffness you feel upon waking up is treated as an unwelcome but inevitable guest of maturity. The big problem is that this issue is usually ignored by doctors and family members who label the loss of agility as a natural process of wear and tear, when in fact we are facing a much more complex and dangerous biological phenomenon. After age 60, this passive acceptance of immobility becomes a fatal strategic error for your longevity, affecting millions of people silently around the world. What begins as a small difficulty in turning your torso or reaching for an object high up quickly transforms into a trap of physical isolation. If you do not understand the mechanics of your locking, you end up sparing your body for fear of pain, which only accelerates the shortening of tissues and the loss of your freedom to come and go without external help. To understand why your body seems to be locking up, we need to look at what happens under your skin. Over the decades, there is a significant reduction in the production of synovial fluid, which acts as the lubricating oil for your joints, ensuring that bones slide smoothly without friction. Simultaneously, your fascia, which is a network of connective tissue that surrounds all your muscles like a protective film, begins to lose hydration and elasticity, becoming rigid and thick. Imagine that this network, which was once like flexible silk, now behaves like aged, tight plastic, restricting not only your movements, but even the depth of your breathing and your upright posture. This scenario of biological rust creates constant physical resistance, making every gesture require much more energy and effort from your worn-out motor system. In addition to the joints, aging brings the challenge of sarcopenia, which is the gradual loss of muscle mass, and dynapenia, the loss of actual strength. Particularly dangerous is the decline of fast-twitch fibers, those responsible for agile and explosive reactions that prevent falls or stumbles. Added to this is a weakening of your proprioceptive capacity, which is the intimate communication between your brain and your limbs about the exact position of your body in space. When this connection fails or becomes slow, you begin to feel unstable, losing confidence in your own steps and adopting a shuffling, insecure gait. Understanding these physiological changes is not a reason for panic, but rather the first step toward reactivating your metabolic potential and recovering the motor memory that still inhabits every single one of your cells. The central conflict haunting your independence lies in a silent and socially accepted habit: the drastic reduction in the variety of movements in your daily routine. Over the years, we spend most of our time confined to chairs, sofas, and armchairs, which creates what we call adaptive shortening. Your muscles and tendons, designed for range, begin to mold themselves to this seated posture, atrophying the body's extension reflex and locking your main joints, such as the hip and spine. This silent error is fueled by the instinctive fear of feeling pain, causing you to avoid bending down or stretching, believing that you are protecting your structure. In fact, this economy of movement is a trap that signals to your biological system that it no longer needs to be flexible, accelerating functional decline in a disastrous and avoidable way. What is truly at stake here goes far beyond simple back pain or a temporary difficulty in getting up. We are talking about your definitive autonomy and your dignity. When you accept morning stiffness as a destiny, you are opening the doors to the loss of basic mobility, which exponentially increases the risk of serious falls and hip fractures, events that frequently mark the beginning of severe family dependence. Furthermore, a locked body keeps the brain in a constant state of alert and biological stress, which directly impacts your mental clarity and cognitive health. The border between a potent old age and a life limited by canes is defined by your ability to react now. Maintaining range of motion is the only way to ensure that you remain the absolute master of your own physical and motor destiny. To understand the anatomy of stiffness, we need to visualize what happens to your muscle fibers over the decades. Imagine that each muscle is like an elastic band that, if left stretched or shrunk for too long in the same position, begins to lose its natural ability to return to its original state of total flexibility. After age 60, this process is intensified by systemic tissue dehydration, causing soft tissues to literally shorten in response to your predominant and sedentary lifestyle. Most people spend the day in closed body positions, which communicates to the biological system that full range of motion is no longer necessary for basic survival in daily life. This adaptive shortening is not a failure of organic design, but a direct biological response to the lack of constant and intentional functional use. The great villain of this aging story is a sedentary lifestyle focused on soft chairs and armchairs, which creates an extremely restrictive motor pattern for your hip and lower spine. When we spend hours sitting, the hip flexors remain in a state of constant and passive contraction, which ends up pulling your pelvis into an inadequate tilt and chronically overstressing your lower vertebrae. Over time, your central nervous system simply forgets how to activate the gluteal muscles in the posterior chain, which are the true pillars of your support and body balance. This muscular imbalance generates a cascade of harmful compensations where your knees and back start to carry an excessive weight that does not originally belong to them, accelerating your progressive physical wear and tear and limiting your autonomy. We now present what we call the master movement, the biological master key to reversing this state of enclosure and returning freedom to your body's most important joints. This movement is not a strenuous or complicated gym exercise, but rather a precise biomechanical maneuver focused on decompressing the vertebrae and deeply releasing your hip joint. By performing a controlled mobilization of the hip, such as an assisted squat or a conscious pelvic tilt, you send an immediate signal to the connective tissues that internal space urgently needs to be restored. This mechanical action acts as a true biological unlocking, allowing the head of the femur to slide freely within the pelvic cavity, eliminating that terrible feeling of locking that prevents you from moving with the agility necessary for daily tasks. The correct unlocking technique works through a fascinating scientific process called mechanotransduction, where physical pressure applied in a rhythmic and conscious way deeply transforms the health of your muscle cells. When you execute the movement with the proper technique, you are literally squeezing the toxins accumulated in deep tissues and clearing the way for essential nutrients to finally reach your intervertebral discs. This controlled decompression not only relieves pressure on the nerves that cause chronic pain, but also rehydrates the muscle fascia, returning the elasticity that you thought you had lost forever with time. By focusing on the quality of the gesture and deep breathing during practice, you interrupt the pain alert signal that the brain constantly sends to your limbs, allowing the body to accept the new range of functional movement. We now enter the vital concept of biological lubrication, a natural process that is activated every time you decide to move with clear intention and correct technique. Imagine your joints as complex gears of an old clock that need fresh oil to function without annoying noises or premature wear. In a healthy human body, this essential oil is synovial fluid, and the only way to ensure that it circulates and bathes all the articular cartilage is through wide and constant movement. By practicing the suggested unlocking protocol, you stimulate your organism to increase the production of collagen and synovial fluid, directly fighting the effects of functional osteoarthritis that limits the lives of so many seniors. This biological self-oiling process is what differentiates a joint that creaks and hurts from one that slides with absolute perfection and renewed vitality. Before we move on to the vital connection between your mind and your muscles, I would like to take an important pause to recognize your dedication in seeking this valuable knowledge. If you have reached this point in the video, it is because you value your autonomy and understand that your physical health is your most precious asset at this stage of life. I would love to hear from you. Which simple daily movement currently causes you the most discomfort or a constant feeling of heaviness? Write in the comments below so we can exchange experiences and strengthen our active longevity community. If this content is bringing a new perspective on what your body is still capable of doing, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel now. This way, you ensure that you will always receive safe and well-founded guidance to maintain absolute control over your aging. The mind-muscle connection plays a crucial role in maintaining your physical power, as human movement does not begin in the legs, but rather in your cerebral cortex. Over the years, if we do not challenge our nervous system with new specific motor patterns, the communication pathways between the brain and the muscles become less efficient and slow. The cerebellum, which is responsible for motor coordination and balance, needs constant stimuli to maintain the muscle tone necessary for your daily stability. When you practice the master movement with total focus on the physical sensation of the body, you are literally waking up areas of the brain that were dormant due to a pure lack of functional use. This neuroplasticity allows you to recalibrate your perception of effort and improve the precision of every gesture, ensuring that your body responds promptly. Another fundamental pillar for your safety is strengthening your proprioceptive capacity, which acts like your body's internal GPS, informing you where each part of your body is located. In many seniors, this perception becomes clouded over time, which generates a constant feeling of insecurity when walking on uneven terrain or climbing stairs. By reintroducing movements that require spatial awareness and activation of stabilizing chains, you are cleaning the lenses of this biological navigation system essential for fall prevention. Training your mind to feel the firm contact of your feet with the ground and the correct position of your hip creates an effective shield of protection against sudden and dangerous imbalances. This sensory clarity is what allows you to move with the confidence of someone who knows their structure, eliminating the anxiety of depending on others. Maintaining your physical power is not an isolated event, but rather a conscious integration of small unlocking habits into your most common and simple daily routine. It is not about spending exhausting hours in a gym, but about ensuring that throughout your day, you offer your body precious moments of relief and functional range. Imagine transforming the act of brushing your teeth or waiting for the coffee to be ready into a real opportunity to perform a light pelvic mobilization or a conscious stretch of the posterior chain. These micro moments of intelligent movement act as biological reminders to your nervous system that you are still an active and fully capable human being. By integrating unlocking into the structure of your day, you prevent stiffness from accumulating and becoming chronic, ensuring that the improvement felt is lasting and transformative. It is essential to urgently change your mindset from rehabilitation physiotherapy to a performance and bio-optimization protocol aimed at those who wish to live with excellence. Often the elderly are treated by society with excessive and limiting fragility, which ends up further reducing their potential for physical recovery and real strengthening. The scientific truth is that your biology is plastic and responds vigorously to motor challenge, provided it is applied with the correct technique and proper progression. Seeing the master movement as a high-performance tool for your daily life raises your standard of personal care and rescues your lost self-efficacy. You are not just trying to avoid a fall. You are training to have the mobility of a young adult with the wisdom and experience that only maturity can provide to lead your own life. Finally, understand that your body is a dynamic structure that is in constant biological dialogue with the stimuli it receives, whether they are from movement or total inertia. Consistency in the daily application of these unlocking techniques signals to your metabolism that cellular regeneration should be prioritized over tissue degeneration. Small doses of intentional movement performed every day accumulate a monumental impact over the weeks, transforming the architecture of your musculoskeletal system in a visible and permanent way. The stiffness that once seemed like a definitive sentence begins to give way to a feeling of lightness and physical availability that you perhaps haven't felt in a long time. By taking this real commitment to your body mechanics, you're investing in the most valuable currency of old age, the absolute freedom of movement. Rest assured that every gesture is a step toward autonomy. Consider the story of two men who crossed the threshold of 70 with opposite perspectives on their own bodies and aging. On one side, we have Mr. Alberto, who, upon feeling the first twinges of stiffness in his hip, decided that absolute rest was the safest way to avoid joint wear. Today at 75, Alberto walks with short, shuffling steps, depending on a cane to cross the room and feeling the bitter weight of family dependence. On the other side, we meet Mr. Ricardo, who at 80 years old dedicates just 5 minutes of his morning to the functional unlocking we learned here. Ricardo still plays on the floor with his grandchildren, travels to destinations that require long walks, and maintains the posture of a man 30 years younger. This brutal difference is not the result of chance, but of the conscious choice to lubricate the gears of life. Aging should not be seen as a chaotic or purely random process that simply happens to us. It represents, in fact, the accumulated sum of decades of small biological signals that we decided to welcome or systematically ignore. Your body functions as a living physiological archive where every neglected posture, every hour of sedentarism, and every avoided movement leaves a deep and lasting mark on your tissue structure. The physical decline that many consider a sudden event is almost always a progressive, silent, and invisible erosion of motor functionality that began long before the first chronic pain appeared. Understanding that you possess the real power to intervene directly in this narrative is what differentiates passive aging from conscious mastery over your own longevity. Morning stiffness is not an obligatory feature of age, but a symptom of the disconnection between your intention and your physical action. It is perfectly understandable that facing the raw reality of aging, you feel a genuine fear of losing your physical independence or seeing your joints lock up definitively. The fear of becoming a burden to those you love or losing the dignity of taking care of yourself is a powerful emotional trigger, but it should not be the final destination of your journey, but rather the fuel for an urgent transformation. For every warning sign your body emits today, such as morning stiffness, there is a counterpart of solid hope based on the science of longevity. Always remember there is still plenty of time to act, as the human organism maintains a fantastic regenerative capacity. Simple changes in your daily routine generate a real and measurable physical impact, allowing your old age to be strengthened, protected, and lived with full power. Ignoring the body's locking signals is not a neutral choice. It is a decision that paves the way for a future of severe limitations and loss of freedom. Without the correct intervention, the stiffness that today seems like just a nuisance will evolve into accelerated cognitive decline and dangerous bone fragility, resulting in falls that frequently lead to frequent hospitalizations and the definitive loss of mobility. Family dependence becomes a bitter reality, where simple tasks require external help, deeply hurting your self-esteem and dignity. In contrast, those who decide to act preventively today reap the fruits of a body that responds with agility and a mind that remains lucid and focused. By choosing the path of conscious movement, you ensure not only more years of life, but a vibrant life, where autonomy and leadership over your own destiny are preserved with vigor. Perhaps what surprises you most in this process of rediscovering the body is that most of your stiffness does not reside in your bones or tendons, but in a sophisticated defense mechanism of your brain. There is a counterintuitive revelation in modern longevity science. Your nervous system proactively locks your muscles to protect you from movements it no longer recognizes as totally safe. This means that you haven't lost your actual physical capacity, but rather the neurological permission to move with absolute freedom. To test this block right now, observe if you can sit and stand from a chair without using your hands for support. If you feel difficulty, your body has turned on the biological brakes. out of an instinct for preservation. Understanding that unlocking is a process of convincing your brain that mobility is safe completely changes the rules of the game. To start your journey of physical liberation today, I propose a simple adjustment to your morning routine. Before getting out of bed, perform a light pull of your knees towards your chest, feeling the decompression of the lower back. Throughout the day, adopt the practice of never getting up from a chair using your arms as a lever, forcing the muscles of your legs and hip to take center stage in your stability. I want to congratulate you who have watched this far and are genuinely committed to your health. Share this video with a friend or family member who also deserves to regain this vitality. Observe how your body reacts to these small challenges and treat every difference with patience and conscious repetition. These possible changes in routine ensure that your biological system remains in a state of readiness, returning immediate utility and the strength you deserve in every step. In this journey, we have understood that physical freedom is not a gift of chance, but the result of a conscious dialogue with your own joint biology. We reinforce that stiffness is not a sentence of old age, but a sign that your gears need attention and the master movement we explore today. From now on, observe how every small decision to move impacts your autonomy for decades to come, ensuring that you age with the dignity, power, and control you deserve. But now, I leave you with a question for reflection. How do you want your awakening to be 10 years from now, with the lightness of autonomy or with the weight of neglect? If this content brought you clarity, comment below, subscribe to strengthen your health, and share this message with those you love so that no one else accepts living locked in their own body.